Hello everyone, this will be the continuation of To Protect His Smile written by ProfessionalRanter on AO3. This will be Chapter 5, Official Resignation. Summary. Garb arrives at Fuchsia only to find a sight that he refuses to let happen. Sengoku marched through the halls, pissed off and wanting to wring Garb's neck. Disappear for months, huh? Abandon your work and post to go stares at the stars, will you? When you get back here, Garb, I swear to everything I'm gonna murder you. Suffice it to say, Sengoku wasn't pleased with Garb's disappearance. With no word from him causing chaos wherever he goes, or pirates suddenly turning themselves in because they want to get away from him, Garb has completely disappeared. Last time he did this, an entire fleet of pirate ships sunk to the ocean floor, along with several corrupt marines found in jail. Where the hell are you, Garp? He wouldn't admit it out loud, but Sengoku was worried for his friend. Even when Garp would disappear, there was usually a note or letter he left behind for them, but this time there was nothing. It had both him and Tsuru holding their breath, waiting for Garp's explosive return. With Garp. So how long has it been since you were last at Fuchsia? Rosinante asked. Garp sighed, remembering the beauty of his home. Too long. I called there the day after I quit so that Luffy would be in a safer place. He let out a sharp laugh, only to learn that he accidentally ate a devil fruit. Garp started laughing loudly, and the two others quickly joined in. It was some months ago. Took me a while to get to Minion Island, and with the Grand Line weather, plus sailing through the calm belt, I'd say about 10 months. A large part of that had been avoiding marine ships. He wished he could get gifts to give to the boys before leaving, for who knows how long, but he didn't have the time. There were things he had to do, and he had to find the time to fully read through the book. Do you plan to get a crew? Law asked, looking at Garp with his head tilted. He didn't know how to respond. He hadn't even thought of getting a crew. Having a crew would be helpful, but he'd also have to ensure their safety, and he'd have to budget then so everyone got what they needed. He would also have to tell them about the wish and the knowledge he had of future events, but they could also provide their own ideas about how to change things. The pros outweighed the cons, though, in the fact that it would allow him to get more things done. More people allowed him to be able to sail far smoother, because despite what he's been able to do, he's no navigator. That could cut down on time at sea. I'm considering it. Marine ship, Rosinante pointed one near the coast of the Goa Kingdom. He went to grab Law as Scarp stared at it before his eyes widened. A celestial dragon. You two get below deck and don't come up. The two quickly flew out of sight, and Garp kept his eye on the enemy ship. However, as he looked closer, he could see a small, poorly made ship sailing too close. The flag it flew chilled him to the bone. A Jolly Roger with the letters ASL behind the skull and crossbone. And he could faintly see a small figure on board, one Garp knew all too well. Not even stopping to think, Garp made sure the ship would reach the beach itself on the shore and then jumped overboard. He swam towards the ship, and he saw the cannons being prepared. Pushing his muscles, he got closer to see Sabo panicking. He didn't even notice the king of the coast in the distance. He was so focused on saving his family. Getting as close as he could, he climbed aboard, and without even letting his grandson say anything, he threw him onto the ship. He then jumped onto the celestial dragon's ship and stood up, dripping wet and brimming with rage. They were gonna shoot his grandson down. They were gonna kill him. Vice Admiral Garp? One of the Marines yelled. Garp could see the false dragon reclining on a chair in the back. What are you doing here? This is my home island. Why are you here? Garp held in his rage. They still thought of him as a Marine, and if he acted out now, he could jeopardize his mission. A god does not tell the foolish mortal why he does things. Kill him now. The celestial dragon said, flicking his hand casually as though he hadn't just tried to murder a child. But Saint Jalmac, he's the hero of the Marines. I don't care, he dared to interrupt my entertainment. Those were the wrong words to say. Garp's fist clenched so tightly he'd be surprised if he didn't pierce his skin as his rage washed over him. Walking forward, it was clear to the Marines there was something wrong. Some stepped forward and tried to stop him, saying something that he completely ignored. The only thing he saw was the dead man in the stupid suit who dared to try and hurt his grandson. Grabbing the head of both Marines, he slammed them into the deck, cracking it and sending wood pieces flying. He continued walking forward. More Marines tried to stop him, but he knocked them aside. They were meaningless, not his target. The celestial dragon began to grow more fearful and raised his gun. The bullet fired did nothing, stopped by his armament Haki. Saint Jalmac quivered as he saw the force of nature walk towards him. An aura of rage engulfed Garp, the Marines quivering in fear at the unfamiliar sight. Knocking Marines aside until he was standing in front of the false dragon, Garp stared down at him with gritted teeth. Not even stopping to think, he shattered the glass dome over the bastard's head and slammed him into the deck. Lifting him up, he could see some teeth come loose. That wasn't what he wanted. He wanted him dead. Slamming back into the deck over and over, the ship began to come apart due to the force he was putting into slamming Saint Jalmac into the ship. He could faintly hear his ship beaching itself while the Marines jumped overboard, only to be feasted upon by the king of the coast. With a roar of pure rage, he slammed the corpse into the ship one more time as his head exploded. As he took several deep breaths, Garp looked down and realized what he just did. He just killed a celestial dragon. Sabo, forgetting what he had just done immediately, Garp jumped up the ship and immediately started making his way for land. Behind him, the king of the coast feasted, the creature ignoring the man who fed it. Getting to the beach, Garp looked around. Sabo, he yelled out, looking for his grandson. Grandpa! That was Luffy. Turning around, he saw his ship in the distance and ran towards it. He saw Luffy and Haze hugging Sabo tightly. He slid onto the sand and pulled all three into a hug as he panted. You're safe. You're safe. He said that more to reassure himself than them. Dadan could be heard running over while Rosinante and Law came out onto the deck and looked over the side. Pulling Sabo close, he looked him over and thanked everything that he could that he wasn't injured despite his singed clothes. Old man, what are you doing here? Sabo looked up at him, voicing the thoughts of his brothers. Garp chuckled lightly. I told you to call me Grandpa. Ace calls you his brother, and that makes you my grandson. He looked down at his grandson and smiled. Ace and Sabo are my brothers too now. Looking at Luffy, Garp saw his wide, happy smile, the one he swore to protect, and let out a loud, booming laugh. Really? That's wonderful to hear. It truly was. Three of the most important people in his life considered each other family, but Garp quickly grew serious. Sabo, why were you leaving the island? His stupid old man was trying to force him to marry somebody. He kidnapped Sabo and burned the great terminal to the ground. Ace screamed, getting angry at the reminder. What? Sabo began to tear up. I was born a noble. I'm sorry. I don't care where you were born, Sabo. You are my grandson. But it seems I won't be able to stay as I'd planned. Garp stood up and helped Rosinante and Law get down. Dadan came to a stop and stared at Garp. Dadan, these are Rosinante and Law. Take care of them. She clearly wanted to argue, but couldn't bring herself to, not with the dark look in his eyes. Why can't you stay? Luffy stared up at his grandfather. Because I have to murder a noble who tried to hurt my grandson. Boys, I've quit the Marines. They gasped in surprise. I'll explain it another time, but I want you to know I love you three so much. He held back his tears, not knowing when he would be able to see them again. You three have been the best thing to ever happen to me. When you set out to sea, hold your head high and smile because you are free to do whatever you want. He brought them in for one more hug, not knowing when he would be able to do it again. Dadan, strip the ship of supplies, then push it out to sea, and take care of them. He's called Outlook, Luffy yelled to him as he walked away, making pay for making Sabo cry. I will, and I expect to see you becoming a great pirate at 17, you hear me? Luffy laughed and Garp smiled, happy to know he made his grandson happy. Walking to the home of the nobles, Garp kept his rage in check, knowing soon he would have enough marines and guards on him to make a sane man quake in fear. He didn't have much sanity. Entering the square, Garp looked around, some people giving him weird looks due to the mostly washed away blood on his torn suit. Walking up to one of them, Garp looked at them. Excuse me, do you know where I can find a noble named Outlook? Can I help you? Looking behind him, he saw a man with a top hat staring at him. Oh, good. You were waiting here for that saint. Garp grinned dangerously. You know where Saint Jawmac is? He's dead. I killed him, just like I'm going to kill you. Before Outlook could say anything or even properly react to what he had just been told, Garp snapped his neck. It rang through the silent town square as everyone looked on in surprise. Then the screams started. Garp stared down at the corpse before scuffing and walking off to where the marine ships would be kept. Vice Admiral Garp, you will stand down. Before the gates were a bunch of marines with their guns pointed at him, ready to fire. I'm not a vice admiral anymore. I quit 10 months ago, but you can consider this my more official resignation. The captain of the assembled marines brought his hand down, and they opened fire. Activating his armament Haki, the bullets fell to the ground. He could feel the book tucked away in his back pocket, humming with the potential for him to protect his family. Once the marines fired all their loaded ammunition, they stared in horror at Garp, completely unharmed. Step aside and let me through, and you won't get hurt. Don't, and you'll have a long stay in the hospital. The marines quickly listened to him and opened the gates before fleeing. Garp got onto one of the boats and took it out of port. Staring back at the Goa kingdom, he lightly scoffed. Fuchsia village was always better company. As it became a speck behind him, Garp pulled out the book. Surprisingly, it wasn't wet, but what would he know? This thing was created by a wish-granting being. Of course it wouldn't be a normal book. Opening it to the first page, he was met with a new sight. Where it had been telling him to save Rosinante, it instead showed an image of him carrying Rosinante over his shoulder and Law walking right behind him. In the background was Virgo's body. Looking to the other page, he saw similar images, each showing the moment he truly completed them. He smiled. At least this way he would always be able to look upon the smiling faces of Ace, Sabo, and Luffy as they declared themselves brothers. That truly made all his efforts worth it. A day later, with Sengoku. Fleet Admiral! A marine ran up to Sengoku, who was talking with Aokiji. What is it? He was slightly annoyed. He had hoped Aokiji might know where Garp was, but no such luck. It was long past time for some sign of him, but no one had seen anything. Monkey D. Garp killed a celestial dragon. Everyone in the hallway stopped in their tracks and stared at the Marine. He was holding his legs and panting heavily as he held up a file for the Fleet Admiral. Looking through it, Sengoku's eyes became wider as he read more. I will call a meeting in 2 days, Aokiji. We will figure out what Garp's starting bounty shall be then. Walking away, Sengoku tried to stop himself from shaking, although if it was from anger or fear, he didn't know yet. Garp's explosive entrance had come at last. And there we go. This was chapter 4. No, 5. This was chapter 5 of To Protect His Smile. I love this chapter so much. Garp absolutely destroying the celestial dragon is absolutely bunkers. Also, casually just getting rid of Outlook right off the bat is insane. Garp is truly no pity. He has no pity, and I think it's a really good way of getting his character out more from, like, in canon he truly also has this harsh no pity ideals, but they are more with the Marine. We can see it in the way that he during Marineford he simply sits back and watch because he is ready to do anything for his morals and for what he believes in. And well, in canon, he believes in the Marines, not absolute justice, but he still believes in the Marine and Sengoku. And here, he believes in the book and believes in saving and protecting his grandkids. And oh, it's so wonderful. I love it. Anyways, I will see you in the next chapter. I hope everyone has a good night.